The Haunted Mansion is not a good movie. In fact, it's a fucking terrible one, as it suffers from having way too many boring characters that don't have any sort of personality other than what the actors bring to the table, and most of them do nothing for the entire movie. They could have easily been removed with nothing being lost at all. Now, the story is about several strangers coming together to try and solve the mystery of the Haunted Mansion, but none of them have anything close to character development. The only two characters who do approach anything close to an arc is the main character Ben and the young kid who looks like Carlton from The Fresh Prince, as both characters have to learn to let go of a loved one. But this is so poorly done that it feels like it was thrown in last minute by the writers, who have wasted so much time on dogshit humour that is about as fun as putting your testicles into a nutcracker. Now, because Disney has raped every franchise they own, they are starting to run out of IPs to ruin, and so they have decided to reboot The Haunted Mansion, that 2003 movie that fucking no one remembers or cares about. This story has absolutely nothing to do with the original, as this one is about a bunch of assholes who get stuck with ghosts, and in an effort to save themselves, they act like crabs in a bucket and trick more people into being trapped just like they are. Now let's talk about the ghosts. Their motivations and the rules surrounding them make no fucking sense whatsoever. All of these ghosts are being bullied by the big bad ghost who makes them haunt people when they leave the mansion until they eventually return. Now, every other ghost except for the main villain can leave the mansion, and he can't. Why is that? I don't fucking know, and I suspect the writers never thought this through. Now, if they are motivated out of fear and can leave the mansion whenever they want, then why the fuck are you still hanging around with this asshole ghost? As without you, he is trapped. That's not the only thing that is stupid about the ghosts, as they can interact with the world to such an extent that when Ben returns home from seeing the mansion, he wakes up to find that his front door opens to the ocean. Did the ghost teleport both him and the house there, or is this an illusion? I don't know, because the very next scene he is in a coffee shop. This is a major problem throughout the movie, as all of the ghosts seem to have such power, and yet none of them can stop 6 retards in one house. Now, because the main villain could win at any point, the writers have had to put many restrictions on him. He needs 1,000 souls before he can leave the house. The last victim must be a willing host, and he can only kill during a full moon. There are no justifications for these conditions, and what we are left with is a neutered ghost that can't really do anything. This movie has so many problems wrong with it. The comedy is fucking terrible. The film is too long and could have easily been cut out by 30 minutes. There is no suspense or any sort of danger to these characters, as they are not trapped and can leave whenever they want. They also have plenty of time to solve the problems, so there's no sense of urgency and the tone is all over the place. Now, with all that said, I'm going to break down the plot. The movie begins with Ben, an astrophysicist who is attending a Halloween party where he meets a girl called Elisa who works ghost tours for a living. They eventually get married, but Elisa dies in an accident off camera, and we flash forward to the present. Ben is no longer an astrophysicist and has quit his job to become a walking tour guide. But when the tour guests discussed ghost stories around the area, Ben gets very angry and goes all new atheist on them.
Ghosts don't exist. Life is dirt. We're all dirt.
So after being depressed for a while, Owen Wilson one day shows up to his house as he wants Ben to help find a ghost at the Haunted Mansion because he has developed a camera lens that will help take pictures of ghosts. Now, this camera lens is just a contrived reason for Ben to go to the Haunted Mansion because, as we see later on in the story, it does fuck all to move the plot forward. So Ben shows up and meets Rosario Dawson, who warns him about entering the house. She is intentionally vague on what exactly is going to happen to him because she does not want to dissuade him into coming into the house. She also further encourages him by massively overpaying him to take the job. He even says that she has paid him too much, but she is more than insistent that he take it. So after a while, Ben takes some pictures and finds nothing, so he concludes that the house must not be haunted. But when Ben eventually goes home, it turns out that a ghost has followed him from the mansion, and it begins to fuck with him until he eventually returns to the mansion. Now he is understandably very angry that Rosario Dawson purposely withheld information as to what exactly was going to happen to him. Now, her response is to not give an apology, but instead basically blame Ben for accepting the money that she insisted he take in the first place.
What a bitch!
Ben is not much better, as being unsure of what to do next, the group decide to trick several more strangers into entering the house, trapping them inside as well. So Ben and Rosario Dawson are both assholes in this situation. The only person they try to stop is Danny DeVito, and that's not because they actually care about his safety. No, it's because they think he will be a massive problem going forward. But he shows up to the mansion anyway and joins the group. Now, luckily for the group, the very first medium they swindle into entering the house is actually able to talk to the dead. She is also incredibly irritating as a character. So she goes on to perform a seance, and a helpful ghost arrives to tell them to go and find Leota, who is a head in a crystal ball that lives in the attic. So after managing to get their hands on her, she explains that she used to be a medium back in the day, and that the former owner of this house was the one who caused all of these ghosts to appear by constantly summoning people in order to speak to his dead wife. It's funny how Leota takes no responsibility, even though she was the one who enabled him to do all of this. If she had simply said no, then none of this would have happened. She is indirectly responsible for these events. So the former owner accidentally summoned the evil spirit and trapped Leota in a crystal ball. Why doesn't he kill her when she is the only person who knows how to beat him?
I don't know.
So in order to banish this evil ghost, they need to find out who he is and to destroy something he owns. So after another seance, Ben astral projects into the ghost realm, where he manages to get a good look at the ghosts. Now all he can see is a bony skeleton with a top hat, and with that description they go to the police station and ask them to give a sketch. Somehow the policeman is able to give a perfect replica of what the ghosts look like. So they ask him to draw the skeleton with muscles and skin on it, and with that they are able to identify that the ghost is a man called Alistair Crump.
Oh, how convenient!
So with that contrived bullshit evidence, they learn that Alistair Crump had a house up north, and a few of them head off in that direction to find some of his shit to bring back to the mansion. So they enter the house, and luckily for them, a ghost has tagged along, but for some reason he doesn't haunt them. Instead, he is nothing but helpful. It's almost like the ghosts in this movie are very inconsistent. The ghost also tells them that Alistair Crump needs to kill 1,000 people in order to leave the house, and the last one must be a willing host for him. He also needs to do it during a full moon, meaning they have 4 days to solve the problem. Why the long deadline? Well, it's so our characters can have enough time to go on big road trips across the country in order to find what they need to find. But because of this, we lose any sense of urgency that the movie is clearly lacking. Now, surely a better story would have been to figure out together who exactly the ghost was by collecting pieces of information scattered throughout the mansion and putting them back together, like some sort of game of Cluedo. But instead, we have one of the worst ghost stories I have seen, where no one feels like they are in any sort of danger and people can just come and go whenever they want. Anyway, they find Alistair's hat and they return to the mansion. Owen Wilson then comes out and says that he is not a real priest and that he scams people to make some money. Ben says that doesn't matter, and that's Owen Wilson's arc this entire movie.
This is worthless.
So they enter the house, but Danny DeVito has been possessed, and he manages to throw the hat into the fire, which for some reason doesn't burn. Now, Crump is capable of altering the mansion however he sees fit, so why not just open a pit and throw them all in? Well, because he would easily win and there would be no story. So he decides to send his very slow-moving ghosts to go after the group. The ghosts are so slow that they leave Ben and Rosario Dawson to go look for Carlton Jr. Danny DeVito gets the hat out of the fire, and the medium frees Leota from the crystal ball. And in all that time, they just arrive at Owen Wilson, who manages to convince the 999 ghosts to gang up on Crump, which they never thought about doing before.
Remember to pick the bigger, stronger kids for your team. That way, you can all gang up on the weaker ones.
So with both psychics free, together they use their powers to banish Crump. So the film ends with everyone deciding to live together alongside all of the ghosts.
That was terrible.
None of these people are friends and you don't believe it. They barely know anything about each other, and when push came to shove, Rosario Dawson and Ben trapped everybody else in the mansion to save themselves. This is played off like a happy ending, but everyone here is a piece of shit, except maybe Danny DeVito. So that was The Haunted Mansion.
That was unpleasant.
This was a bland, boring experience that lacked any sort of tension, drama, and the comedy was shit. Most of the characters did fuck all, and the plot is piss poor. After watching this movie, it's instantly forgettable, and none of the characters are remotely likeable, so you don't even give a shit if anything happens to them, although I wish one or two of them did die. Disney must have nothing left if they are digging up 20-year-old movies that nobody remembers just to make a shit remake out of. But this is what happens when you're a company run by talentless twats.